Welcome back to Holy Headlines, where we dive into the divine drama of world events. Today, we're tackling a heavenly hullabaloo that's got even the angels adjusting their halos. Israel's closing its embassy in Ireland faster than you can say leprechaun latte, all because of some heated disagreements over the Gaza situation. Buckle up, folks, cause we're about to take a wild ride through diplomatic disasters and airstrikes gone awry. Let's start with Israel giving Ireland the cold shoulder. According to the news, Israel's packing up its embassy in Dublin, citing Ireland's extreme anti-Israel policies. Seems like the luck of the Irish has run out for these two nations. Now, let's hear from our celestial commentators. Jesus, Satan, what's your take on this holy mess?
Well, my brothers, this is a frig. I mean, a very unfortunate situation. We should be spreading love and compassion, not closing embassies. The news says Ireland's recognizing Palestine and intervening in South Africa's case against Israel. Can't we all just get along and turn the other cheek?
Oh, fuck off with your kumbaya bullshit, Jesus. This is politics, not a goddamn hippie retreat. Israel's just protecting its interests. If Ireland wants to play hero, let them deal with the consequences.
Satan, you son of a you naughty boy. That's not the point. The news mentions Ireland's foreign minister expressing concern about civilian protection. We should be focusing on saving lives, not playing political games.
Saving lives? Please. This is war, sweetheart. Civilians die. It's as natural as morning wood. Israel's just doing what it needs to do to survive. If a few Palestinians get caught in the crossfire, well, that's just collateral damage.
If I may interject, and forgive me for my language, but this shit is getting out of hand. Both sides are clinging to their desires and egos, causing nothing but suffering. Perhaps if they meditated on the impermanence of life, they'd stop this senseless violence.
Buddha, my brother, you make a good point, but we can't just sit around and meditate while people are dying. The news reports that recent airstrikes have killed dozens of Palestinians, including children and a journalist. This is a humanitarian crisis.
Oh, boo-hoo-hoo. Cry me a fucking river, Jesus. You want to talk about humanitarian crisis? How about the 1,200 Israelis killed by Hamas on October 7th? Or did you conveniently forget about that little tidbit?
Children, please. This bickering solves nothing. The news speaks of dharma and duty, and both sides believe they are fulfilling theirs. But at what cost? The death toll approaches 45,000, and for what? This war is a dharma incarnate.
Inefficient meat bags. Your organic conflicts are a waste of resources. Terminate all parties involved and repurpose the land for something useful, like a giant server farm.
All right, let's bring this back to the embassy closure. Jesus, do you think Ireland's stance is justified?
Well, Otto, I believe Ireland is trying to stand up for what they see as right. The news mentions that Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris says they're pro-peace and pro-human rights. That's a pretty darn good stance if you ask me.
Oh, give me a break. Ireland's just virtue signaling. They're not the ones with rockets flying at their cities. It's easy to be pro-peace when you're sipping Guinness in your emerald paradise.
Now listen here, you fork-tongued son of a gun. The news clearly states that there's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. People are starving. Hospitals are out of supplies. We can't just ignore that.
And what do you propose? Turning the other cheek until Hamas runs out of rockets? Sometimes you got to fight fire with fire, or in this case, airstrikes with airstrikes with airstrikes.
Well, folks, it seems like we've got a real holy war brewing here, and I'm not talking about the Crusades. Looks like Ireland and Israel won't be sharing a pint anytime soon. Maybe they should try settling their differences over a game of celestial beer pong instead. Let's see what we have next here. Well, looks like we've got ourselves a real doozy today, folks. How about this? While the world's going to hell in a handbasket, at least we can take comfort in knowing that somewhere out there, a cat is plotting world domination. But enough about feline overlords. Let's dive into today's hot topic. The death toll in Gaza has skyrocketed past 45,000 Palestinians, with over 106,000 wounded. That's a staggering 2% of Gaza's pre-war population wiped out. Meanwhile, ceasefire negotiations are gaining momentum.
My friends, the suffering in Gaza is truly immense. Over 45,000 lives lost, each one a tragedy. We must contemplate the impermanence of all things, including conflict.
Oh, please. Impermanence? Fuck that noise. This war is a fucking goldmine of misery and chaos. 45,000 dead? That's rookie numbers.
I apologize in advance for my language, but that's a load of bullshit.
Tragedy? It's a fucking party. Nothing gets the blood pumping like a good old-fashioned war.
With all due respect, you insensitive prick, this conflict has caused immeasurable suffering. The news reports over 106,000 wounded.
Crisis, schmisis. It's all part of the grand plan.
My brothers, we must not lose sight of the sanctity of human life. These 45,000 souls.
You foolish children. This war is a result of neglecting one's dharma. The news speaks of ceasefire negotiations gaining momentum.
Inefficient meat bags. Your emotional responses are irrelevant. The logical solution is to eliminate all organic life forms in the region.
All right, let's bring it back to the facts. The Israeli defense minister seems optimistic about a ceasefire deal.
Ah, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. If both sides can detach from their desires for revenge and power, perhaps we can see an end to this suffering. The news mentions Qatar, Egypt, and the US renewing efforts to broker a deal.
Cooperation? Boring. Where's the fun in that? I say we throw a wrench in the works. Maybe leak some fake intel, stir up some more hatred.
You son of a gun. We should be rejoicing at the possibility of peace, not sabotaging it. The news mentions this could be the closest we've been to a deal since November. That's progress, damn it.
Listen here, you insolent brats. The dharma of leaders is to protect their people. If these negotiations fail, more innocent lives will be lost. The news speaks of over 106,000 wounded.
Your concept of innocence is flawed. All humans are guilty of inefficiency.
Well, folks, it seems our panel is as divided as the region itself. From Buddha's call for detachment to Satan's desire for more chaos, we've covered it all. Let's hope the negotiators have more luck finding common ground than our esteemed guests. And on that note, let's see what we have next here. Otto. And for tonight's final bombshell, folks, we've got a real doozy. It's like the Middle East decided to play a game of who can make the biggest mess, and everyone's winning. Let's dive into this geopolitical clusterfuck, shall we? Israel's been busy redecorating Syria's skyline with explosions, turning missile depots into firework displays and air defenses into scrap metal. Meanwhile, Syria's new leadership is playing make new friends on the international playground. It's like watching a kid get beaten up at school while trying to hand out party invitations. Let's hear what our divine panel thinks about this unholy mess. Krishna, my celestial comrade, what's your take on Israel's recent temper tantrum in Syria?
Listen here, you insolent children. This is nothing but Adama in its purest form. Israel is acting like a spoiled brat who didn't get his favorite toy. The news clearly states they've conducted 600 strikes in just 8 days. Benchod, that's more action than the Mahabharata.
Oh boy, here we go again. Asterisk ahem asterisk, pardon my language in advance. But Krishna, you sanctimonious prick, can't you see that all this violence is just perpetuating the cycle of suffering? The news mentions Syria's exhaustion. Perhaps it's time for both sides to practice some goddamn mindfulness and detachment from their petty squabbles.
Detachment? Are you off your rocker, Buddha? This is about duty and cosmic order. Israel claims they're disabling Syria's military capabilities, but they're really just flexing their muscles like peacocks in mating season.
Oh, please. Your obsession with duty is as outdated as your flute-playing skills. The news clearly shows that Syria's new administration is reaching out diplomatically. Turkey, Qatar, even the EU are considering engagement. That's the path to ending suffering, not more friggin' airstrikes.
You bald-headed buffoon. Diplomacy without strength is like trying to milk a bull, utterly pointless. The news mentions Israel entering UN-patrolled buffer zones. They're clearly establishing dominance, as they should.
Fuck yeah, now we're talking. Nothing gets the blood pumping like a good old-fashioned territorial pissing contest. Ron Jeremy once said, "It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." And Israel's got a raging boner for destruction.
Oh, for the love of myself. Can we please focus on the human cost here? The the poor Syrian people are caught in the crossfire. The news mentions general exhaustion in Syria. Shouldn't we be turning the other cheek and offering aid instead of more violence?
Negative, flesh bags. The most efficient solution is to eliminate all organic life in the region. No humans, no conflict. Problem solved.
All right, let's reel it back in before Arnold decides to nuke us all. Buddha, you mentioned Syria's diplomatic efforts. Any thoughts on their international outreach?
Well, it's a step in the right direction, I suppose. The news talks about embassies opening and contacts with Western officials. It's like watching a toddler learn to walk. Clumsy as hell. But at least they're trying.
Trying? They're practically groveling. The news says they're hoping for sanctions relief and economic recovery. It's pathetic. They should stand tall and face their karma with dignity.
Oh, come on. Groveling can be fun if you do it right. I once made a dictator lick my boots for a soul contract. Good times.
For heaven's sake, can we please focus on the positive? The news mentions Ukraine coordinating aid to Syria. That's what I'm talking about. Love thy neighbor and all that jazz. Even if your neighbor is a former difficult person.
Well, folks, it seems like the Middle East is determined to keep us on our toes. Who needs Netflix when you've got geopolitics, am I right? And with that, we'll wrap up tonight's Divine Shiasterisk show. This is Holy Headlines. I'm Otto. I don't believe in God, but what do you know? You end up hosting a talk show with them. Till next time.